Has Wizards of the Coast given up on the OGL entirely? And what's their plan to win fans back to D&D?
So you make plans that fail?
No.
He also plays the lute.
On Monday, 3 Black Halflings posted a nearly hour-long interview with Kyle Brink, the executive producer of the D&D design studio. The interview is the first of several with various influencer types, meant to explain Wizards of the Coast's reasoning behind this whole OGL debacle and start the process of trying to regain trust with the community. Now, Jeremy Cobb and Liv Kennedy, two of the hosts of 3 Black Halflings, did an excellent job of asking some tough questions about not only the OGL, but also other recent controversies like the Hodozi and the lack of diversity amongst Wizards of the Coast's higher-ups. Now, we're going to focus on the OGL and the 1D&D aspects of this interview, but we highly encourage folks to listen to the full podcast. Because 3 Black Halflings is a great show, and also it's a very intriguing interview. Now, my biggest takeaway from this interview is that Brink believes that Wizards is giving up entirely on creating a new OGL, specifically for 1D&D. Instead, Brink believes that the SRD will be updated to remain compatible with the 1D&D changes, and that if/when new rules and materials are made available to the public to use for third-party material, it will be released through a Creative Commons license instead. Brink also specifically compared 1D&D to 3.5 revising 3rd edition, which, quite frankly, it's rather obvious, but this is one of the first times they've really come out and explicitly said so. Now, Brink also seemed to blame this whole OGL mess mostly on a combination of quote-unquote good intentions gone awry and too many cooks being in the kitchen.
Too many cooks, too many cooks.
Brink told 3 Black Halflings that the planned changes to the OGL had been in the works for several years, and that they were born out of a desire to better protect the game from hateful content that had recently appeared on the scene, and also mega corporations exploiting D&D. Brink pushed back that Wizards was trying to hurt the Cold presses and the Paizos of the world, and they were instead trying to protect D&D from the likes of Meta or Google. He specifically mentioned that they didn't want Meta to create a D&D metaverse without Wizards of the Coast's involvement. Quite frankly, this doesn't really track with the low royalties bar that specifically seemed to be aimed at third-party publishers like Paizo and Cold Press, but we have heard that there were folks who have wanted to change the OGL for years, so that part actually makes a lot of sense and seems to be very true. Brink deflected about specific meetings with third-party publishers about the OGL, saying that he wasn't familiar with what happened at those meetings or who all were contacted. However, he did say that Wizards did reach out to Kobold Press, Paizo, and Critical Role, among others. And he did kind of say that the nature of each meeting might be different based on what feedback they were looking for. He also kind of weirdly pushed back that the OGLs distributed in those meetings, which were eventually leaked to the public, were basically finalized copies, saying that they were just drafts, simply by the nature of them not being released to the public. There was a lot of back and forth and pushback on this, and it really seemed like a weird hill to die on. But Brink did say that he kind of looks at drafts differently because of the nature of what he does with the D&D design studio. So who knows there. He also claimed that large parts of the OGL 1.1 were already abandoned by the time that it leaked, and that the lengthy delay between the leaks and Wizards' response to those leaks was due to a desire of delivering a revised draft to the public instead of just giving platitudes. He also said that he didn't know who wrote the infamous "they won, but so did we" blog post, but it did spur Brink into taking direct control of the communication. Some of that timeline doesn't really seem to line up with what we all experienced, but it did seem very clear that Brink and the D&D design team didn't have direct control over the situation or enough of a voice until very late in the game. And that really tracks with some of the things that Brink also said in the interview. He mentioned that dissenting voices about the OGL were not being given the respect within Wizards that they deserved during these initial conversations. He also said that he didn't like the initial response to the OGL controversy from Wizards' end. Most notably, he said that the OGL 1.1 was a terrible way to approach what Wizards was looking to do, which is why the company ultimately chose to abandon it, and abandoned it rather quickly. He also said that actions actions by Wizards of the Coast is what ultimately will rebuild trust between D&D and the community, which is 100% true. So give the interview a full listen to and let us know your thoughts. Do you think that Brink said the right things, or were these just deflections and platitudes? Be sure to leave your comments in the comment section.